I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 145, Confidence and Pride. Your life does not have to revolve around your husband's pornography addiction. You are not defined by his choices or by what he sees on a screen. You are not just the porn addict's wife. You are so much more. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to go from handling it to healed, because I've been where you are and you don't have to stay there. My name is Jolene Wynn. I'm a member of the LDS faith, a certified life coach, and a wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. Hello, my ladies. How are you today? I am loving today. Today, my oldest daughter, Scarlett, turned 11. And that is amazing. What's fun about birthdays or days like this is I don't have a great memory, but on days like this, I know exactly where I was 11 years ago. I know exactly what I was doing. And I think that's kind of fun. It's kind of fun for me to think back and to have something specific that I can recall exactly the timeline of what happened in the last, the 24 hours, what I was doing exactly 11 years ago, what I felt like, what happened. And she was my first. She was 2 weeks early, and I had high blood pressure, so I was induced unexpectedly, and we were in the hospital for over 24 hours, and finally it came time to push, and they said it's time to push, and my whole body just started to shake. And that's exactly what had happened to me every single time before I had each one of my babies. And I think I don't know what it is. It's just a rush of emotion of fear or anxiety or holy cow, here we go. And my whole body just starts to shake. And it was just fascinating. I was remembering that of the shaking and the disbelief and how tired I was when she was born and how amazing it was and just all the beautiful and wonderful things. And it just reminded me so much. I was just reflecting on how I felt the day she was born and how much of life, even on beautiful days that I think are just amazing, are still 50-50. There was still so much 50-50 involved in that day, in that experience, right? We think that there should be these moments that everything is amazing, right? Think of like your wedding day. Did anything go wrong? Think of like the day you had your kids, right? There's still some fear, there's still some anxiety, there's still some frustration or stress. Maybe not, but some of the times there's still 50-50, even in the days that we remember to be positive. And so it's fascinating to think on those. You've assigned it as a positive memory. You've assigned it as a positive experience, even though there was positive and negative in the creation of it. You guys following me? Like I think of my wedding day. Or let me just stay with the birth example for now, and then I'll do my wedding day. So, for example, Scarlett's birthday, or the day that I had her, the delivery day, right? There was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of I didn't want to go to the hospital. I had got a high blood pressure reading at home, but I didn't want to go to the hospital because I thought they would just monitor me and then send me home. And so I was like, I'll just stay home. But my doctor said, your blood pressure is so high, you have to come in. And then I just sat there for a little while. And so I was frustrated because I just sat there for several hours. And yet I was also fine. And yet I also had a little frustration with a nurse who was kind of obnoxious. And she was like, I'm just having the worst headache. So I'm just not in the mood. And she said that to me and I was like, I'm in labor. Like, I'm sorry you have a headache, but I think on the pain scale, I think I win. And so that was a little frustrating. And then I was also starving and I was also exhausted. And, there were so many emotions. They were positive and negative. And yet cumulatively, I've labeled that as a positive experience because I choose to, right? Now let's take my wedding day as an example. So that's another day where it was obviously mostly 100% positive, which was fantastic. However, I also had a huge migraine on my wedding day. By the end of the night, when we drove away, Rob always says this is so unromantic. But as we drove away, I wore a dress and it like kind of had a lace up back. You would tighten it. And so as we drove away, we made it a couple miles down the road. And I was like, Rob, you have to pull over. And he pulled over to the side of the road and I was like, unlace my dress. And so he unlaced my dress so that I could heave outside of the car on the side of the road. And he was like, that is not how I anticipated me unlacing your dress. So there was a lot of negative and positive on that day, but yet I label it all as positive. When we have experiences in life, they're always going to be 50-50. You get to decide how you're going to label it overall. How do you take the cumulative of that experience and label it? This is kind of a tangent I didn't plan on going on, but I just wanted to throw this out there. I was just reflecting on this a little bit today, and so I just wanted to offer that to y'all. Maybe I need to do a whole podcast on that, but just notice when you have an experience, there's going to be positive and negative. You ultimately get to decide, how am I going to choose to remember this? And that's entirely up to you. So I am choosing to remember Scarlett's 11th birthday as an amazing day. And I'm so grateful to be her mom. I feel so woefully inadequate to be a parent to any child, especially this one. But I'm so grateful for her, and she's taught me so much. And I'm just loving her today. All right, ladies, let's talk about confidence. I am so excited to talk about this because this is something I dove into so much over the last week. I just finished up the Confident Sexuality Master Class. It was phenomenal. It was incredible. We had almost 30 women that signed up for it, and it was just the most incredible week diving into insecurities and confidence and sexuality and all of the thoughts and feelings that we have surrounding it that we don't even realize that are there. So if you guys missed it, I am turning that into a course that you can have access to, much like I did my How to Trust Masterclass. If you guys are unaware, I taught a How to Trust Masterclass, and I did that live, and it was $19. And then afterward, I turned it into a course that you can go purchase through my website. So if you go to thepornaddictswife.thinkific.com. I need to get that changed. But if you guys go to that, I will put a link in the show notes to both of these. But if you guys go to that, then you will be able to find this course. It's now not $19. It is more than that. But now you can have access to it even if you weren't able to come live. And I would really encourage you to go to this masterclass and watch it. You get access to the replays. And I would really encourage you to go watch it because the topics that we hit on were so good. And the coaching was so point, and everybody brought up so many valid concerns and so many questions that I was able to address, and it's just so much amazing content information. So if you are struggling with your sexual relationship with your spouse and you want it to be different, or you have any hesitations about it at all, or you feel like your physical insecurities are preventing you from having the experience that you want, I would highly encourage you to go sign up to go get access to this course. And again, I will put the link in the show notes so that you can have it. And if you sign up for my emails, if you go to my website, joleneWynn.com, and put in your email address, then you'll be on my email list. And I will send out a link this week with the direct link to this course, okay? So as we've been talking about it this week, we spent an entire day just talking about confidence, and I wanted to share some of that with y'all. I kind of started talking about it last week when I was talking about insecurity and shame. Now, I talked about how when we have insecurities, when we have these thoughts, these uncertainties that we think about ourselves, then our brain often wants to turn it into shame. It wants to make it mean something about us. Now, in the same way, but in reverse, our brain does this with confidence and turns it into pride. Okay, and that's what I want to talk about today, the difference between confidence and pride, and how our brain wants to turn it confident things into pride, and what the difference is and why it wants to do that. Okay, now, as a review, I'm going to start with the definition of confidence. Okay, confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. It is a firm trust. This is according to the dictionary. Now, one thing I want you guys to notice, even in this definition, confidence is a feeling. Did you guys know this? Again, it is not a personality trait. It is not a genetic code. It is not written into your DNA. It's not that some people are just born confident and some people aren't, and so you just weren't lucky enough to be born with confidence. No, it's an emotion. It is a feeling that you feel, which means it's entirely available to you because your feelings come from your thoughts. So if you are not feeling as confident as you want to, or as confident as you used to, the only thing that has gone wrong, the only thing that has happened is that you have somehow shifted your thoughts. Either you're not thinking thoughts that generate the feeling of confidence, or you're not believing them. Maybe your brain is telling you them, but they don't resonate with you. Do you follow me? I had several clients bring this up on the calls this last week in the Confident Sexuality Masterclass of, well, I'm trying to tell myself these positive things, but they just don't really sit well with me. I don't believe them. I'm having a hard time holding on to them. Yes. Okay. And now we've talked about this a lot on the podcast about when you have a belief, right? If you are telling yourself that you're confident, but you don't believe it, there's a reason why. It's not sitting with you. You're not allowing yourself to believe it for some reason, okay? But confidence is just a feeling that you feel because of a thought that you're thinking, okay? Now, the definition of confident is a feeling, okay, or showing confidence in oneself. So confidence is an emotion. Being confident is when you feel that feeling about yourself. Right? Do you follow me? When you give yourself permission to trust in yourself, to rely on yourself. Now, what I want you guys to notice is this doesn't say anything about insecurities. Okay? Typically, what we think of is we operate under this false idea, under this lie that confidence is the absence of insecurities, and it's not. Confidence is not the absence of insecurity. Confidence is knowing and accepting the insecurity that you feel and knowing that it doesn't change your worth or your value. Okay, now remember we talked about last week, sometimes when we feel insecure, when we feel like these insecurities, we have those within us and we think these thoughts and we feel insecure, our brain wants to turn it into shame. It wants to make it mean something about us. Confidence is knowing that we have these insecurities, becoming aware of them, accepting them, and accepting them looks like not trying to pretend like they're not there, okay? Not trying to talk our way out of them, not trying to ignore them, not trying to convince ourselves out of them or to make it mean that there's something wrong with us when we see them, right? Not turning them into shame. Confidence is saying, yes, I have some insecurities. I feel a little insecure or uncertain about X, Y, and Z, and not make it mean something about you. You guys following me? Confidence, again, is not the absence of insecurity. I was talking to my husband about this, and I think that sometimes we operate under these false notions, false definitions of things, right? Just like bravery is not the absence of fear. Right? And faith isn't necessarily the absence of doubt. It's what you choose. Confidence is not the absence of insecurity. It's recognizing that it's there and being okay that it's there and moving forward anyway and not using those insecurities against yourself, not making them mean something about you, and also not allowing them to prevent you from pursuing that confidence. Do you guys follow me? Give yourself permission to feel confident and a little insecure. You can have both at the same time. And I think our brain often wants to go to all or nothing. Our brain often wants to say, well, I feel insecure about this, and that means I'm not confident about it. But what if that's not true? What if it doesn't have to be confident isn't necessarily not having insecurities? We just bring the insecurities along for the ride. This is what I was talking about this week, is you just say, that's all right. I can still show up with confidence and hold space for the insecurity that I feel as well. You just hold space for the feeling of insecurity. Hold space for the feeling of self-doubt. When you do things that bring up feelings of uncertainty or insecurity, then what I want to offer is that you just allow them to come with you. Now, this week we talked a lot about this in the context of our sexual relationship. When you feel insecure about certain things in your sexual relationship, then pursuing that anyway and just bringing the insecurity along for the ride. And it's so fascinating because what we think we have to do is overcome the insecurity before we can feel confident about whatever that thing is. Right? This is why we might say, I need to lose weight first before I buy lingerie. I need to, these are the only examples. I'm only having physical examples come to my mind because I just taught this class. But we were talking a lot about physical insecurities, right? Or I need to be more creative in bed before I feel more confident in where I stand with my husband sexually, right? There's a lot of times where we feel like we have to conquer that insecurity before we are allowed to feel confident. But what I want to offer you, ladies, is that you practice giving yourself permission to feel confident, even if you still feel insecure. You can hold space for both emotions at the same time. Are you with me? Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is the difference between confidence and false confidence and also pride. Okay, so we just talked about what confidence is. False confidence is when you are trying to pretend or ignore the insecurities, right? This is the face that you put on, even if it's just for yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you project to others, but it could be something that you project to yourself. And here's how you know, here's what it looks like and how you know if you're doing this, okay? What it looks like is pretending that you don't have insecurities or you never feel insecure or uncertain. Okay. What this looks like typically is just trying to argue with yourself in your brain, trying to convince yourself in your brain that you don't feel how you're actually feeling. Okay. It's a lot of self-judgment. It's when your brain becomes aware of, oh, I don't know that I like myself in these pants. And you're like, no, it's okay. It's totally fine. I think this is great. Or it doesn't matter anyway. Or when you say things like, well, I used to feel really insecure about that, but I don't anymore. And then a little part of you disagrees. And it's like, well, except for when I put on a swimsuit, right? It's those little tiny objections that you try to tap down, that you try to pretend aren't there, that you try to ignore, right? It's every time, and maybe it's different for some people than others. Every time you put on a dress or you put on high heels, do you feel like you're pretending, right? And you're like, no, it's okay. I'm allowed to wear high heels, right? It's the convincing of yourself that you don't actually feel the way you feel, okay? That is when you're just trying to pretend or ignore the insecurities and put on a face, even to yourself, of confidence and showing up in a confident way, because it's harder to ultimately recognize those insecurities when you make them mean something about yourself. When your brain is turning your insecurities into shame, like I talked about last week, it's very difficult to accept and acknowledge those insecurities because you make them mean something about you, right? Because rather than it just be something that is, rather than it just be a thought that you're thinking and an emotion that you're feeling, it's more than that. It's about you and your personality and who you are. And that's much heavier and much easier to just try to ignore temporarily. Now, ultimately, in the long run, ignoring all of this doesn't actually help, and it's not beneficial, right? We know this, right? However, in the short term, it's very tempting to do. That's a false confidence, when you're just trying to pretend like the insecurities aren't there. Okay, that's different than confidence, right? Confidence is accepting the insecurities and being totally fine with them. It's not a problem. And just taking them along for the ride. Okay, now the difference between insecurity and pride is typically how pride operates with comparison on a greater than or less than scale, right? Pride is, I'm better. Okay, now this could be compared to other people, or it can just be compared to yourself. I'm better than I used to be, right? I've seen this so often, is women will use their insecurities against themselves in comparison to who they used to be or what they used to look like. Okay, so again, I just did this Sexuality Master Class, so I'm talking a lot about physical insecurities here that arise in a sexual relationship. Okay, but they have a lot of comparison, a lot of pride and shame involved when they compare themselves to who they used to be or how they used to look and how they look like now. Depending on how they think about themselves, that could either revert them to shame or to pride. But notice how both of those, shame and pride, are both making it mean something about themselves. Rather than it just be something you feel insecure about or feel confident about, you make it mean something about you. Okay, so for the insecurities, it's I have this insecurity, I feel insecure about this thing, and I'm making it mean something about me that's negative. Pride is I have this thing that I feel confident about, and I'm making it mean something about me that's positive. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Pride and shame are actually very, very similar. They're almost the same. It's taking something and applying meaning to it, to your value, to who you are, to your identity. Now, this is very appealing with confidence because it makes us feel very good. Pride is an up, right? It feels good to think about yourself in a positive way. And I'm not saying that you should only think negatively about yourself or that you should never feel positively about yourself. What I'm saying is you allow yourself to feel confident without making it mean something about you that has to make you on a scale of greater or less than. Because the problem with this is that then you are always judging and comparing, even if it's only to yourself. And the problem with this is that you are always going to find something to be less than. You guys following me? And attaching things to your worth, attaching your emotions of insecurity or confidence, again, which are just feelings, attaching those to who you are then makes them much harder to become aware of and to separate yourself from, which you need to do in order to process them and to look at them from an objective standpoint so that you can see whether or not it's serving you to think that way or not. You guys following me? So if I take thoughts about how I feel confident, if I have a thought that then makes me feel confident, and I make that mean that I am confident about this thing, or that I'm so glad that I am now a better wife or a better mom because I think this way, that's pride. Now that doesn't serve me very well in the long run because that leaves me dependent on my feelings to determine my worth or my value or my identity. You guys with me on this? If you guys go back and listen to last week's episode, it's the same thing in reverse. Rather than taking insecurity and turning it into shame by making it mean something about ourselves, we do the opposite. I feel confident and I turn that into pride by making it mean something about me, right? Okay, so let's do an example. Again, physically, this is what's coming up. That's what's on my brain because I just taught it. So let's say, for example, I lost weight and my thought is, I feel so much better now. I feel so amazing. I feel sexy. I look amazing. And then I feel confident. Okay. Now then, if I make that mean that I am better in bed or that I am much sexier as a wife or more attractive as a wife or more appealing as a wife or that I'm a much better wife or a sexual partner because of it, then I am taking how I feel and I am making it mean something about me and how I show up in my role, my identity as a wife and a sexual partner. Do you guys follow me? Now again, ladies, I'm going to reiterate, the problem with this, ladies, is that you are turning your emotions into something that determine your worth and your value, and that is never true. Your worth and your value are irrelevant of your feelings, and even having negative emotions, those insecurities and uncertainties that you feel are completely fine and don't mean anything about you. And they also are not a reason they're not something that you need to hold against yourself, right? And neither is confidence. Confidence doesn't have to be something that you use to judge yourself, especially according to your past. I heard this so much this week was, I'm not as confident as I used to be. And I think it's because of what my husband is doing. Right? I used to feel really confident and then I found out that my husband's watching porn and now I don't feel confident anymore. Okay? It's not what he's doing that's creating the decrease in confidence. It's your thought about it and what you're making it mean. When you make it mean something about you, then you're going to feel less confident because you're taking something that you feel insecure about and applying it to who you are, making it mean something about you. You follow me? So again, this is the best news I could ever give you because we think that confidence comes from either trying to put on a face or just trying to build it. I hear this so much is like the way to build confidence is just, fake it till you make it. Have you guys ever heard that? You guys have heard that, right? Fake it till you make it. No, that doesn't really work. Not when you're doing it at an ignorant level, not when you're trying to pretend or ignore what is actually going on and feeling. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe in accepting it and working through it. And I'm going to teach you guys right here, this is exactly what I taught last week, but I'm going to teach you guys right here how to increase your confidence just in a few simple steps. They're not necessarily easy. Okay, this is what came up last week. Everyone was like, you make it sound so simple. It is simple. The steps are simple. Is it easy to apply? No. I had a woman on the call last week who she said she'd been listening to the podcast for a year. I had someone email me and say, I'm joining your program today. I've been listening to the podcast faithfully for 18 months. Okay, is this all very easy to apply? No, you ladies know this, but it is a simple process. I'm going to teach you right now what that is. Okay, if you want to increase your confidence, here's what you have to do. Number one, You have to train your brain to dismantle your old beliefs. Why don't you already feel confident in the first place? You have to answer that question, because if you don't answer that question, all you're going to do is get into the false confidence where you're trying to ignore or power through these old beliefs, and you're just going to try to repeat to yourself positive things or try to pretend like you're confident, but it doesn't really sit well or resonate. This is what happens, and I call this is when you're trying to think your way out of your feelings, okay? If you're trying to think your way out of your feelings, you're going to try to convince yourself that you feel confident and just pretend like you actually do and ignore the fact that you don't feel that way. Okay, ignore the fact that you feel insecure or uncertain. So first of all, you have to become aware of your old beliefs, which is what we did in this class, which is why I recommend you go join it and watch it. Okay, become aware of those thoughts, the reasons why you don't feel why you don't feel confident in the first place, why you feel insecure and uncertain, and start working on breaking down those beliefs. Okay. Looking at the thoughts, becoming aware of the thoughts, acknowledging the thoughts, processing the old emotions. Again, we did this all this week. If you don't know how to do this, go join that class and watch it, because this is the process that I took everyone through last week. Okay, you have to dismantle the old beliefs. Why don't I already feel confident in the first place? And then you have to choose new thoughts that you want to think about yourself, new feelings you want to believe about yourself. What do you want to think about yourself? If you could think anything about yourself, what would you think? If you could believe anything about yourself, what would you believe? How would you want to feel about yourself if any feeling were an available option to you? And did you know that that's possible? Because you get to choose your thoughts and feelings. It's a beautiful thing. But you have to do both parts. You have to dismantle the old beliefs, which becomes becoming aware of the thoughts, accepting the thoughts, and processing the emotions behind it. And then you work on building the new thoughts. And that is when you allow yourself, you give yourself permission to practice feeling confident along with the old insecurities. Okay? A lot of times, again, practicing confidence is not false confidence. It's not trying to ignore or rationalize our way out of our old beliefs, our old feelings of insecurity and uncertainty. It's allowing those and accepting those, taking them along for the ride, but then also working through them, because you are consciously choosing to think new thoughts and believe new things about yourself. Again, the process is simple. It is the same pattern that I have taught you guys over and over and over. Step 1, awareness. How do I think about myself? How do I feel about myself? Step 2, acceptance. This is the exact same process I teach with my clients. I've taught you this over and over on the podcast. Don't judge yourself. Become aware of the thought. Become aware of the feeling. Accept it all. Don't make it mean anything about you. Step number 3, process your emotions. This is the key, and this is the thing that most people skip, especially in the mindset industry, in the coaching industry. People forget about the belief part, about the processing of the emotions, letting go of the emotional baggage, figuring out why you're still attached to it, why you don't want to let it go, processing it physically in your body and releasing it. And that is when then you can, step 4, start retraining your brain. That's when you get to choose new thoughts to think about yourself, and then rinse and repeat. Okay, that's it. The process is simple, ladies. If you want to feel more confident about yourself, we just have to figure out why you don't feel that way in the first place, dismantle those thoughts and feelings, process the old emotions, let go of the emotional baggage, and decide on purpose what you do want to think about yourself. And then give yourself permission to keep doing it and to take the insecurities along for the ride, because they're just feelings. And they don't mean anything about you. And even just acknowledging that they're there is an act of confidence. And I believe in you. Ladies, I love you guys so much. I have loved having the last week of coaching with y'all. If you guys missed it, again, go to my website, jolenewind.com. I will put the courses up on there so that you guys, I will link them up so that they are easier for y'all to access. I will show you guys how to do that on my website. I'll put them in the show notes. Go sign up for my emails so that you guys can get those as well. And I can't wait to talk to you guys next week on a brand new podcast episode. So take care. Hey, lady. I used to think that I wasn't enough. I used to think that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't a good enough mom, that I wasn't sexy enough as a wife. And I learned how to stop doing that. And I want to teach it to you too. I actually wrote it all down in a book that you can buy on Amazon. And it's called The Not Enough Wife, Why We Look Outside Ourselves and How to Stop. And in this book, I go through my life examples and lessons that I have learned that it helped me to understand how I started looking for my worth and my value from all the wrong things, from everything outside of me. I tried to change everything about myself in order to feel better about myself, and I realized I was doing it all backwards. And in this book, I teach you all about that. I want to invite you to read it. You can go get a copy for yourself today and get one for a friend. Again, you can find it on Amazon. Just search it up. The Not Enough Wife, Why We Look Outside Ourselves and How to Stop. I can't wait to hear what you think.